Wellness Olympia. What an exciting time. New wellness champion taking over and seeing the former champion being dethroned. We're going to dive into today the top 16 we're going to look at. Literally 16 all the way down the call outs here of all those wellness competitors. And we're going to go over their placings, why they may have landed the way they did. Criteria, looking at the season coming up and what maybe if you're still competing, what you should be focused on the end of this season, and ultimately everything you need to know to be a better wellness competitor yourself, no matter what level you're at. I promise you, if you stay with me through this whole video, and I know it's going to be a long one, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to do better next season. You're going to do better at any level, whether you're a first timer trying to get a pro card or already a pro. So let's get down to it. Let's take a look at it and get into the Wellness Olympia. So here's our top three here. So we have Eduarda. Absolutely massive win for Eduarda to come here and take this over. You know, we've been following Eduarda a long time on the channel, from her amateur shows into turning pro, into winning pro, into now she's won the Olympia. So a massive, massive increase for her as an athlete. Very, very quickly. We'll talk a lot about her physique in just a minute. We have Elisa over here. She takes second, former champion, now dethroned. And then we have Elisa over here in third place, okay? So this is exactly how I had the top three for this Olympia in my predictions even. So it's not that surprising to me, but let's break it down. Let's get into it. So Eduarda, she showcases a very good, shoulder level here for wellness. So wellness tends to look a little bit more upper body dominant, just than, like bikini. When it originally came out, it was all about, everything in the torso would be pretty identical to bikini. Now we're looking at where shoulders just a little bit more fullness here. And that I found is generally just because wellness athletes carry, more muscle. However, very similar torsos, upper bodies, in other words, to what is actually going on in bikini at those same levels many times. So Eduarda has good fullness. She's not lacking anywhere in the shoulders. We can see she's got the shape in the front delt, the lateral delt. We'll get to the rear delt when we get there, right? Eduarda always has a very good advantage too, where she does not have biceps and triceps that detract from her physique. We do tend to see that a lot in wellness where, there's a lot of mass monsters in wellness. You're actually not really going to see any of them in this video because they are so far beyond. I know a lot of people commenting like, oh, what about this athlete? What about that one? The mass monsters that you may have wanted to see in wellness are not even in the top 16 as far as placing goes. So it's very interesting. If you want a separate video on that, I'll do it. Comment that. Let me know. But Eduarda's got that fullness. She doesn't have, the arms that detract or deter, which is great because it lets the shoulders take the party. She has very narrow waist. That's great. Creates that V-tapered look. This is what judges are looking for in the torso of a wellness competitor, something you want to be focused on with our new standard now, Eduarda, by the way. So looking now from, the upper body into the torso, the midsection, not a lot of dramatic stuff going on there. Lower body, obviously no wellness division is the only asymmetrical wellness women's division. In other words, we can see a lot of glute fullness, a lot of glute shape, a lot of quads, everything here. So very disproportionate amounts of muscle on her lower body, which is what you want in this division. Like you go up here, and if you're a coach like me and you know what to look for, you're like, okay, well, there'd be balance and symmetry. No, not down here. She's got definitely a lot of glute development, very full upper glute. We can see that from this front position. Quads are not outstandingly showcased in this position. That's fine. Doesn't really need to be. But we can see there's definitely muscle, there's definitely symmetry, there's definitely shape to fit that. Now, conditioning wise, interestingly enough, not showing a super hard condition, right? We got some soft lines and obliques, a little bit of separation in the delt, some separation in the glute, and no splits in those quads, no feathering, none of this stuff, right? Like you see on some of the bigger wellness athletes, the mass monster wellness, I like to call them. So again, very consistent so far with actual criteria notes for wellness, right? It is one of those things where it seems judging and everything else is kind of coming to home base with wellness. It's doing the same with bikini. Judges are trying to shift that look back into where the real, rules and everything state, where these divisions kind of started. And, one of the reasons I picked Eduarda to win this was not only because she's advanced very, very fast, but also she has the most Fran type of a look, right? She definitely does. So I think that again kind of diverts us back. Fran was really the one leading the whole division for quite a while. It diverts us back to where wellness is coming home base. A lot of you that have been worried about wellness being too big, too lean, I'll tell you what, we're seeing a change of a tide right now as far as where this division's going. I think that if you were hesitant and thought that, oh, no way I could do it, it's too big, too lean, come on back to wellness, try it out, right? Like, this is a very exciting time for me and my wellness competitors because we tend to not like the ultra extreme mass monster, heavy PD look, right? That can become in wellness. So very interesting. See where this is going. Now, Isa, let's talk about Isa. So Isa takes second here. Former champion, now dethroned. Second place. Keep in mind, we're just talking about these placings back and forth. What's the difference? What's going on, right? All these athletes you're going to see in the video today are a great representation of the criteria you should be focused on. So Isa, Isa's one of those athletes I've said many times. I think that she can come in really on at times, and sometimes she comes in really off. To me, I think she was off this Olympia. I mean, she looks a bit flat in the shoulders. Like, we can still see shape, but they're not, as filled out as they could be. Definitely not to the degree of Eduarda's here. She does also have, at this point, this Olympia, for some reason, a bit more bicep and tricep action going on, which, again, not on everybody does it hurt, but sometimes this hurts you. Having bigger biceps and triceps, it pulls away from the fullness you can see in that shoulder, right? Like, he really does do that, and I know I talk about it a lot in the women's divisions, and a lot of people are probably like, oh, it's not that big a deal. They're not even looking at that. It's mostly about the aesthetic that you see from the shoulders, right? So, like, if you have really big biceps and triceps, doesn't matter how damn big your shoulders are, they're not showing as full, as dramatic, as much of a width as they could because again, your bicep and tricep can pull away from that. So, Isa, I'm noticing that a bit there, right? I instantly see, she's still got her good taper and good shape. I mean, we're not going to unsee that on Isa, but her midsection looks blurry. It looks a bit hazy, right? Like, it doesn't look like we're getting as much out of this. It almost looks like she's getting a little bit of abdominal distension here as well. Definitely not as flat in the midsection as Eduarda is, and that is, again, just a lot of markers for where she's kind of missed the mark on her physique this peak or this Olympia, right? And I always say the champions, when you're the champion, when they're the top, really you have to improve. You have to come in to show improved. Otherwise, there's going to be somebody hungrier. There's going to be somebody behind you like Eduarda who's climbed the ranks like a, freaking monster coming up very, very quick who will take it, right? So that does happen to a lot of Olympia champions in all divisions. You really got to come in improved. Otherwise, if you don't, I mean, it's pretty much not going to happen because somebody else will, right? And so what we see for Isa, though, lower body always has great lower body shape overall. She's got that good development in the upper glute, a lot of glute development here, a lot of quad shape and size. Everything is there. Now, conditioning wise, honestly, pretty much it nails the mark for the most part. In the lower body, we see a lot of similarities, not too hard in the quads or anything like that, but upper body for some reason is coming in a lot leaner than what's going on down here. And, we do see that sometimes on wellness competitors. Would not expect to see it on her, the Wellness Olympia champion. So a little bit of uneven conditioning, we start to get some veins and, cuts and stuff in the arms, and it definitely can get interesting to say, okay, well, maybe all of those things come together. But either way, it's just not as much shape. It's not as much, of that balanced condition. It's not as much in general coming through as we see on Eduarda here. I mean, that's a big, to me, I know you're all looking at it and like everybody's got their fan favorites, whatever. I think it's a big, big difference looking at these physiques from first to second here. Let's take a look now at Elisa. Okay, so Elisa takes third. She comes in looking pretty freaking dialed, right? She's got that good shoulder shape. Everything tapers in. Super narrow waist effect on her. She's got probably the most dramatic V-taper look right here. Lower body-wise, we can see the muscle in the glutes and the quads and everything here. Again, not really off the mark with condition. She does tend to look a bit upper body forward to me in general. She's got a bigger width up top, probably bigger muscle development in general in her delts. And, again, the arms, they're looking a bit bigger even than Isa's at this point here. So, that upper body muscle, what it does is it starts to make you look a little bit more symmetrical. And it's not to say she does per se in this pose. She's looking more symmetrical though, in back. I think that'll clean up, but every pose, you really got to look asymmetrical in this division. So what I see there, that's ultimately what I would guess, is going to be that upper body development. So again, wellness competitors, you really want to make sure you're prioritizing that lower body dominance factor, which again, we're going to see in everybody here. But, you know, at the amateur level, it's way more rampant. I see it all the time in the NPC where athletes are, you know, coming in and they look like just bigger bikini. That's not going to favor you in wellness, right? So let's pop over to the back where the full story is always told. Wellness division is won from the back for the most part. And, you know, as soon as we click back here, okay, we get a lot of different stuff going on, right? Like, this is kind of crazy to look at. Eduarda in the middle, Isa over here, and then Elisa over here. We'll go one by one here and kind of compare. So Eduarda definitely showcases that shoulder shape from the back here just a little bit. There's that rear delt fullness I was talking about, you know, so she has that fullness up top, creates that taper. We don't see as much of that because, you know, hair's down, all that. That's fine. Main thing we're looking at in wellness division from the back is, guess what? Posterior chain, glutes, quads, hamstrings, right? So when you look to the quads, you want to see a little bit of that sweep action in this division. That's an indicator, again, just how quad dominant these athletes are, how heavy the quads can be, how much muscle they have. So, you know, she's got a really good proportion there between her quads, that sweep matching her hamstring development. And that is really key. Wellness division, you do want to make sure that you still have really good symmetry between your lower body muscles. If you have quads that stand out too much, it's going to throw it off. If you have glutes that are overdone compared to your quads, it's going to throw it off. You want to have good symmetry between the quads, the glutes, and the hamstrings. And if they show up like that, it's definitely going to help you win, right? Like, that's what we see. So Eduarda's really got a nice balance between the quads and the glutes. It's very, you know, aesthetic. It's very symmetrical. And we look up top at the glutes now, we can see, you know, the upper glute is fully rounded, it's fully developed. She's pulling that tie-in through very, very well there. That tie-in, especially in wellness, comes from having, you know, combination of proper stage condition, being at the right body fat, and a lot of muscle density. The most that, you know, wellness competitors, when they're not getting their tie-in, they're not getting that glute to show through as much as they want, it's because they need more muscle mass. So Eduarda, this is, again, a pretty big indicator that she has a lot of muscle there, and it really pulls through. And again, very good symmetry between the hamstrings, the quads, and the glutes to lock down that look. So, I mean, right here, it's really hard to say that, you know, she could have come any better than she did. And no doubt she won that title. I think she may be able to sit in this spot for a good period of time. We will see. Now, Isa from the back. Isa does tighten up from the back, right? She does come in a bit more, but, you know, not as much coming from the shoulders here. And that's all right because it's wellness. But, you know, it is something to note compared to her and Eduarda. We do see a little bit less of that. And also what we see lower body is what I always get from Isa lower body. She has so much muscle. She has so much density, you know, good quad sweep, good hamstrings, good glute structure. Everything's there. For some reason, it seems like it's harder for her to hit that peak just right. I don't see as much fullness in the upper glute. I'm not getting as deep of a tie-in look here. You know, this indicates to me that her glutes could have been more filled out. It could have been more peaked in, and she could have come in tighter and bigger. And, you know, honestly, that 3D effect, she could have maybe stretched out of the glutes a little bit more, could have made a big difference. But, you know, when we look at the front also, again, I mean, Eduarda pretty much is winning that pose very, very undeniably, and she wins the back too. So it's hard to say if anything would have changed, but I do see, you know, a little bit flatter in the glutes, not as much of that tie-in coming through. Also, she's not showcasing as much muscle from her quads or her hamstrings in general, which is also interesting to note, right? But again, not in wellness division where the lower body dominance and the muscle there is the priority. So to me, I look at these side by side and it's very clear how that placing landed. Honestly, you could almost, let's talk about Elisa for a second. I could almost say Elisa could have gotten into that second slot, right? Like, you could have gone either which way. And, you know, what Elisa, I think the difference is, it probably put her in third. Still got that good shoulder shape, you know, still tapers in, everything's there. Lower body wise though, she's coming in quite a bit leaner than the rest of this group. So she's got, you know, a lot more hamstring popping through. She's got some good quads sweeping, but her glutes look a bit, you know, flatter. They look tighter, less filled out. So again, judges kind of going a little bit softer in this division right now in general. And, you know, they want fullness. They want a softer look. Eduarda really brings that. She's still got the right condition. Elisa looks a little bit lean, a little bit, you know, maybe stringier as far as her muscle threading goes and everything here. And also her glutes look a little bit more depleted. Not as much of that upper glute coming through on her or overall glute density pulling through the tie-in as much as it could. So That is the difference, honestly, between the top three, is that Eduarda really peaked her lower body in perfectly, fullness combined with condition, and it showcases very 3D, yet still soft, where Elisa, a little bit flat in the glutes, and honestly, even Elisa, a little bit flat in the glutes and leaner. So those are interesting markers to note. Keep in mind, we're doing top 16, so stay with me as we keep rolling through this. And if you like this stuff, I got a lot more Olympia content coming. I'm going to be like, having to get an investment in some type of an energy drink or something like that to support all the content that must be. Maybe I'll just start dry scooping pre-workout as I sit here, but we're going to get through it. Okay. We're going to get through it. So now we got fourth and we got fifth here. We got Rayann over here in fourth, and in fifth, we have Leonida. Okay. So we have, two athletes here coming in with a very similar yet different looks. Also very big difference compared to Eduarda. So Rayann, you can already tell, even though her hair's all over it, you can tell she's got a lot more of that upper body look, and she generally does. She's a bigger athlete, right? Like, look at this bicep, dense. That's a lot of muscle there. You can just see more muscle throughout her entire midsection too. We start seeing six packs, stuff like that coming through. She's very lean. We're getting a little bit of rib, movement here. More, messed up the thing. More rib movement there. Movement meaning we can see ribs. She's lean, she's big, she's dense, she's got muscle, she's still got great shape. Lower body, everything showcases, right? You can see the sweeps, but we do start seeing more splits in the quads, which we have not seen on anybody above her yet. Overall, I do think that she can look a tad more symmetrical because she just has so much upper body muscle. So bigger and leaner, placing lower here as we move on. Looking at the same thing for Leonida over here, right? So good fullness up top, honestly not overdone, but it's symmetrical wise. She does look pretty symmetrical. It's not like a blatant lower body dominance difference here compared to what's going on up there. Still is, but just a tad. So, for her, it's honestly probably just adding more lower body muscle. Get that out there. Get that, more fullness in the lower body. She also does, again, appear, leaner still. We still do see, this oblique line. We see some veins in the upper body. It's interesting, right? Wellness is really moving that way. It's going away from the bigger look, the leaner looks. And this is top 5. Keep in mind, everybody's a great representation of criteria, but still, this is what the difference is. And that's what we're highlighting. So let's go now to the back. That's where it's always talked about the most. This is where you can see Rayann, super symmetrical of a look, right? And if you watch my channel a long time, I'm hoping some of you are out there like, oh, I instantly noticed that, coach. Right? I instantly noticed it. So we do see some fullness from the shoulders. We do see a taper and everything there, what we would expect. Now, lower body wise, lean looks coming through, right? Like these quads cutting like that. And hamstrings cutting like that. And her quads, they're not like looking heavy. They're not looking as full. She doesn't look lower body as dominant as she could at all. And definitely not compared to Eduarda. Like, look at that. That's a massive difference. Upper glute depleted, upper glute filled out, tie-in showing, but tie-in 3-dimensional. Quad sweeps, massive. Not as much on Rayann. So that's, again, leaner, more depleted is a less filled out look. It means your muscles don't pop as much. It means you're leaner in general. So you might show more threading and stuff. Not necessarily favored in wellness. And in fact, I will say it's not. So Eduarda's got a softer, more filled out look. And interestingly enough, this is extremely similar to what was going on in bikini in that video I did. If you didn't watch the full bikini breakdown, even if you like wellness only, go watch that because it's very interesting to see what's going on with the judging in the women's divisions right now. Looking at Leonida here, okay, so good overall shoulder shape, tapers in. We do see lower body, muscle structure. Upper glute looks to be pretty filled out. We get a 3D effect from the tie-in. Quads are looking dominant and heavy here. That's good, all good. What the biggest difference is, she's got like really good shape. It's not showcasing the same at all in muscle development and size, right? So her glutes and all this, her hamstrings, everything looks a little hazier. Could have probably pulled that in just a bit tighter in the lower body there. And sometimes you see that discrepancy, right? Like conditioning could be leaner up top and, softer in the lower body just because of the nature of the beast. But we're also seeing a massive size difference. Her to Eduarda's got way bigger glutes, way bigger quads, way bigger hamstrings, and she's clearly, again, much more lower body dominant than what's going on in anybody else in the top 5 thus far. So she tends to look a little bit more symmetrical here, Leonida that is, and that's what I see. Maybe tighter in the lower body, a little bit less symmetry, a little bit more size and shape. Let's move on to some more of the athletes in our group here. So we have 6th place Valkyria. We have in 7th over here Elisa Meswinkle. Okay, so we got 6th and 7th, and this is when things, once we break that top 5, stuff's gonna look still similar. Everybody's great at Olympia. Everybody's great. You're looking at the best in the world. But for the sake of where things could be heading, what we want to look at in wellness, what we want to look at, for criteria and what you need to know, let's look at what's going on with 6th and 7th here. So Valkyria, good overall shoulder, shape and tapers in, and everything's here. Like I said, we're going to start seeing very consistent similarities here. Nobody's going to really stand out like blatantly different. We're not going to see any of those math monsters or anything I mentioned. But for her, we start to get, again, heavier looks in the lower body, more muscle, more splits in the quads, more density there. Again, more rib look. Like Eduarda had a rib look before, doesn't have it anymore. She removed it, right? And that's conditioning. That's conditioning, softer conditioning that does that. Come in too lean, you start to show more rib. You start to show, these oblique lines that are coming through that are not even, from muscle. It's more from just condition. So, Eduarda doesn't even really have that line that much. It's very, very faint. So again, bigger and leaner, not doing great in wellness. And that's what seems to be the case. So let's look at Lisa. Lisa, good overall shape, tapers in pretty well here. Looks overall good. Very symmetrical of a look for her, I would say. Her shoulders tend to match what's going on with the glutes, what's going on with the lower body. Her condition doesn't seem to be 100% on point here. It seems that, we're pretty hazy in the midsection, not really getting a lot of a pull out of the glute lines or the quad lines or even in the shoulders. So she may be a tad too soft and also just, too balanced in that muscle there where it's very symmetrical. More lower body dominance is going to be the key, more quad sweeps, more glute development. But, as I say, these poses honestly are not always the best. That front pose in wellness is not the best. We got to kind of go to the back to really get the full story, but it's where we see it. So Valkyria, very, very lean, very full of muscle, a lot of muscle density, right? Like I can almost see her rear delt splitting here like this. We can see triceps, stuff like that. Start to see even forearm veins from the back pose. I mean, that's very lean, and she's got a lot of muscle, upper glute, a lot of muscle coming into in general. Her glutes are disproportionately large to what's going on with the rest of her lower body. So it's a great example to talk about that in wellness, where you want to have a good balance between the quads, hamstrings, and the glutes. You don't want any muscle to really stand out too much. I would say her glutes do stand out a little bit too much. They also don't look as full as far as 3D effect goes. She has a lot more development there, but we could see that tie and pop through a little bit more if that was filled out just a little bit more there. I think that her balance overall definitely wellness-esque, right? She's not symmetrical, but the lower body balance between these groups does look off. Like it would be better to see a little more quad here to balance with that glute, or bring the glutes down a little bit more to really keep that shape balance. That lower body needs to be symmetrical in this division. Make sure you're prioritizing that. Some athletes I know from coaching, many they'll come on, I start working with them and they got quads that are like 3 times the size of their glutes. I'm like, okay, well, we got to fix that, got to rework that, got to rebalance that. Sometimes it's opposite. Sometimes you have too much glutes, not enough quads, not enough hamstrings, stuff like that. But you'll notice Eduarda has a very, very good balance, very, very symmetrical there, and she wins this whole thing. So again, looking at Lisa now, 7th place. Lisa's physique, good overall shape in the upper body, tapers in, lower body stands out to be not as filled out as it could be, not really pulling as much from that, upper glute, overall glute density there. The tie-in isn't really popping 3D. She's got, quads and she's got hamstrings, but again, that condition is looking just hazy. It's looking softer, right? It's like, it's a blurrier level of condition. So she probably honestly need to be a little tighter lower body and also to fill out these muscles a little differently. And that tends to be what we're going to start to see as we go. It is really hard to peak in wellness. I know from being a coach, right? Like from coaching wellness athletes, it's harder. It's probably the hardest women's division to peak for because you are looking for a disproportionate peak. It's the only division where you have a lower body's got to look a certain way and an upper body's got to look a certain way, and they got to look different, right? Like every other division, bikini, right, figure, any of that, it's a symmetrical type of a thing you're aiming at, this is asymmetrical, right? So a lot of wellness athletes, especially as we move call out, we'll start to see, you know, the simple things in the peak and things like that could have made a big difference. So we have 8th over here, Camille. And we have 9th over here, Rayann. And this is going to be, again, to kind of get close to closing our top 10. We got 16. So if you're hanging out, you're still with me. I know it's a long video. I appreciate it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think right now? Are you happy with Eduarda's win? Do you think Elisa should have had it? You think somebody else, someone that is not even presented in this video, should have won? Let me know. I want to know what you think. And, you know, hang out with me. I got a lot more. I'm going to make you a better competitor on stage, I promise. So Camille here, definitely instantly upper body forward look, right? So we get a lot of the shoulders, a lot of biceps, a lot of triceps, tapers in well though, you know, again, but it's not going to show in the lower body at that same disproportionate level. So a very symmetrical look for her. Upper body, honestly, maybe kind of prioritizing what lower body is doing here. We don't have as much quad fullness. We can see there's a lot of glute density here, but the quads are kind of looking like they're behind here from this front pose. And Rayann, we're going to see a lot of that same stuff where you see, you know, pretty big shoulders, pretty big biceps, triceps, taper in works well, but lower body does not look disproportionately larger. So you start to look too symmetrical, right? Wellness competitors, when you overdo the upper body, it does look too symmetrical. And that really makes it hard. That really makes it hard to, you know, do fantastic in this division. We're looking at the Olympians. These things are way more obvious at the amateur level. I see it every single time, every single weekend that there's an amateur event. You know, there's wellness competitors in the NPC, huge upper bodies, and it's like, what's going on there? You know, so really got to prioritize that. When I'm designing a wellness program, like every set, rep, and exercise, I'm building specifically to make sure that that athlete is going to enhance what they need to look like lower body and avoid, you know, anything we don't want upper body. So that's what we kind of see here. Let's go to the back, though, with these two, because, again, that'll probably seal the full deal. So Camille here, what we can see, you know, overall shoulder shape, everything is here. It's all good. You know, the upper body, again, it looks in symmetry to the lower body. And I think, again, that's just because it is. It's a little bit more symmetry here. Glutes do stand out here pretty well. Need a little bit more of that upper glute fullness for sure. The tie-ins coming through pretty strong. Not as much muscle in the quads, though. You can just tell that instantly, right? Not as much. So the glutes kind of overpower this back pose. Needs a little bit more of that muscle in the quads, a little more in the hamstring too, kind of even out that look, that balance between the lower body groups, and then also making sure that it looks disproportionate. So honestly, a lot of times with wellness, it's, you know, you got a lot of good shape, you got a lot of good shot, you know, overall development. You got to increase the size. You got to just bring up that density, bring it up, bring up the glutes, bring up the quads, bring up the hamstrings, make this look a lot more disproportionate up here, and you will do better and better on these stages, right? It's feedback for everybody. All these athletes, again, fantastic job, great reps to the criteria. All right, Rayann over here, what we can see. Overall, you know, a little bit of that shoulder coming through, comes down in here. Lower body, very lean. You know, we start to see some veins and even feathering on the quads over here. Strong separation, the hamstring quad. Not as much fullness coming from the glutes. Upper glute definitely looking pretty depleted out here. The tie-ins coming through, but I think, you know, the focus probably was being on leaner when it could have been focused on being more filled out. And that's really the key. And, you know, it's not like massively disproportionate to what's going on up top. It is, but it isn't. Like, but when you look at Eduarda, like you could easily just ignore everybody over here, look at that and be like, oh yeah, wellness competitor, great, yeah. But if you look over here, then you say, okay, well that's a pretty big difference actually, right? A lot more development, a lot more disproportion. That's what's winning in wellness. All right, we are now going into 10th and 11th, and on the dock we have Danielle here, and then we have also over here Elisa. So Elisa and Danielle, let's take a look. And, you know, as we start getting down here, this is where things start to become a little bit more obvious as far as what's winning, what's not necessarily. And we're going to see a lot of similarities in everything I've already been saying. So, you know, we can see right away Danielle has a lot of shoulders, a lot of size there, a lot of bicep and tricep. I'm even getting some trap here. So she's definitely big in the upper body. She has a taper in, but her waist looks wider. It looks a little bit more muscled, a little bit denser in the oblique, probably creating some of that. And then lower body wise, we can see obviously some glute shape, some quad shape, but her lower body looks underpowered here. Not as much glute coming from that, not as much quad density. It's not disproportionate, and it's not as tapered of a look as we could be seeing on somebody like Eduarda, right? So again, these are just the biggest differences. Looking at Elisa now, we can see overall good shape in the shoulders. Definitely lean up top, definitely bigger delts, start seeing some feathering, some veins, stuff like that. Super lean in the midsection. That's why this oblique cuts like this. We can start to see rectus abdominis coming through, and that's not from doing crunches and stuff. That's from being ultra lean. So definitely on the leaner side, and lower body just looks totally depleted out. Not as much coming from the quads here. We still get good glute shape, but her quads look smaller. It does even here, even though she's not ultra big in the upper body, it still looks like the upper body is more kind of overpowering what's going on in the lower body. And that's, again, these similarities between these two, who plays very close to each other. Let's see how the back looks. And yeah, I mean, do I even need to say it, folks? Do I even need to say it? I know my fans appreciate you watching. I know you're getting this. I know you're understanding a little bit more what we're looking for. And hopefully you instantly went, they look freaking symmetrical, Coach, right? They look symmetrical, because they do, right? Danielle here, she's definitely looking, bigger. I can see the traps here again. Bigger in the delts, tapers in strong. That's great. Lower body shape and everything is here. A lot of quads, a lot of hamstrings. Not getting as much 3D from the glutes, right? Upper glute needs more overall glute development. Her quads are pretty heavy here compared. So, it's a little bit of a symmetry thing, lower body, but also this is very symmetrical. This is very, very symmetrical, especially compared to, again, Eduarda, the standard now, right? Like, that's a big difference when you look at that. And over here, same things going on with Elisa. We see the shoulders, we see the taper, we got, quads, we got some hamstrings, we got glutes. Her glutes filled out a little bit more up top, even honestly. The tie-in could pull through a little bit harder, but biggest thing, again, is symmetry. It's a symmetry variable. They're very symmetrical. Both of these athletes here, 10th and 11th, are looking much more up and down symmetrical than Eduarda is. And it's, again, Wellness, the only asymmetrical women's division that we want to hammer on. I'll stop saying it eventually, but probably not. I'm going to see it my whole career. All right, 12th and 13th, and we got just a handful of athletes more, so keep rolling with me. We got a lot to talk about still. So Cass Gillis here, and then we have over here, so she got 12th, and we have Alexis over here taking 13th, okay? And this is interesting, Cass. We haven't seen her really look like, she's one that always comes in very, very big, very lean. I think she must have tried to soften up her condition here, yet she's still at that point, and maybe that's why she always comes in leaner. The condition looks off when she's softer like this, so it kind of throws things off, because her midsection looks very hazy. It almost looks like it's not really where it needs to be. Her upper body still comes very lean. We still see separation up here. She always has big shoulders, big bicep, tricep, a lot of veins going on here. Lower body's chiseling a bit. So, it's kind of disproportionate, uneven conditioning here. It throws a little bit of the look off, right? Like, Eduarda has that very consistent condition up and down. Cass over here, a little bit softer in the midsection, a little bit, harder up top, a little harder in a few spots in the quads, but maybe not in other spots. So, again, and I don't got to say it again, but I'll say it one more time, symmetrical, very symmetrical, right? She's got big shoulders, matched big quads. She's always had a lot of muscle. She always comes in very lean usually. And, this is definitely an interesting look for her. We haven't seen her look like this on stage probably ever. So it's definitely noted to be different. Looking over here at Alexis now, a lot of similarities where we see bigger shoulders, bigger biceps and triceps, bigger lats even here. Good sweep in, everything looks good there. Lower body has good muscle and structure. Symmetrical. It's very interesting to see, though. All the late call-out wellness athletes are looking really, really symmetrical, because they have upper bodies that a little bit bigger than they should be, right? Because even on her, we're getting some traps. Symmetry and, size is not what is winning wellness. You want to be asymmetrical, lower body dominant. Really focus on that, and not bringing it in too lean. She's pretty lean here. Again, we see rectus abdominis cut through all this, right? So, yeah, let's go to the back. And you know, from the back, two different looks happening, same similarities though. So Cass again coming pretty lean. So you see how narrow this pose is. That's her trying to make her shoulders definitely look, you know, like they're smaller, like, because she knows they're big, right? You gotta kind of do that. But lower body wise, it doesn't change what's going on here. That upper glute looks pretty depleted out. You know, we start to almost see feathering here. Could be some tan lines, but almost feathering. Very lean in the quads, very lean in the hamstrings. It's just a very overly lean look, and it kind of makes her muscle balance look off. We're not getting very, you know, 3D fullness effect. Like, she has very little fullness compared to Eduarda, and it seems mostly she came in very, very lean, depleted, but that condition didn't come in right, so that's why certain parts of her physique are hazier, like her midsection versus others. Yeah, it's just an interesting look, but you know, that lower body is very, very lean, very, very depleted looking compared to Eduarda there. And looking over here at Alexis, similar stuff going on, right? But she's actually got the opposite, where she's looking very soft lower body. So, you know, glutes look full, everything's pulling through there. Does not have nearly the same size to the glutes, the quads, or the hamstrings as Eduarda does. Also, it came in a lot softer. We're barely getting tie-ins. We're barely getting hamstring separation. You know, she does also look pretty symmetrical here in this position. So this is pretty typical for when you move out these callouts, these lower level callouts at this point. You know, at these events, you start to see a little bit of back and forth. One's leaner, one's softer. You know, that's all right. Let's take a look at what we got going on here now. Okay, so Denai over here, and then Giselle over here. So Denai's in 14th, Giselle's in 15th, and we have one more we will talk about after this. So stick with me as we finish this out. And this is going to be a little bit of back and forth here too, where Denai, she's got, you know, a lot of shoulder. I can see the traps again. These bigger upper body wellness athletes coming through, right? And she's got big lats too, big arms, big bicep, tricep. Tapers in okay. You know, midsection's a little bit wider, a little bit more muscled, a little bit heavier. She's ultra symmetrical. I don't need to say it again, but you know, the quads and the glutes and everything, I mean, it's all there if you just didn't have as much of that upper body development, right? So again, it's what's happening as the call out goes down. We're getting more symmetrical wellness athletes where their upper body matches their lower body more. They're looking a little leaner. Some are looking softer, but either way, the symmetry is the biggest problem here for pretty much everybody that we've looked at today, outside of like that top 7 where it was pretty, you know, a lot of things made sense there. Now you start to see, okay, well, symmetry is the problem. So Giselle over here, you know, she's got decent shape in the shoulders, pulls in pretty well, midsection wise, good taper, good structure down here in the glutes and even at the quads. Honestly, I don't feel that she's overly symmetrical. I feel that what I'm seeing is she does not have the same level of size, period, like anywhere. Not same level of shoulder fullness, not as much glute, not as much quad. So, you know, when we kick it to the back here, that's probably what we're going to see. And sometimes you do start to see that, right? You just need more size, more muscle, more density overall. And when we get to the back, it's always interesting and wellness. Like, you can look one way in the front, you get to the back, it's like a whole different competitor. But here's what we got going, right? So Denai, really big shoulders. It almost looks disproportionate. Like it's like way too much shoulder going on there, right? And that really does make the lower body look really, really balanced to what's going on up top. Just not ideal. Not ideal in this division. Upper glute appears to be pretty solid. Could have pulled through the overall glute fullness a bit more. It does also appear her glutes are just a little bit out of symmetry to what's going on with quads and the hamstrings, right? Need a little bit more of that probably to balance that look. Looking at this compared to Eduarda, though, it's a real big difference. Really, really big difference there. Okay. And so now we look over at Giselle. So Giselle, you know, she definitely still has, again, I didn't think she looked too symmetrical. She doesn't have that same level of muscle, though. And from the back, you know, she's definitely too lean, a little bit too lean. Needs more upper glute fullness overall. Pull through this tie-in some more width fullness and balance out, again, with the quads, more hamstrings, even more glutes, honestly. And it's kind of soften the look because she looks a little bit hard here from this back pose. Definitely for sure on the harder side where we can start to see, you know, the separation, these feathering, even some vein stuff. It's a little bit too lean, and she just doesn't have that same muscle. One more to look at, and I appreciate if you've made it all this way, you're like an all-star for me. I love it. I love you. Give me a thumbs up, all right? And let me know what you want to see more. Keep in mind, I got tons more tons more Olympia stuff coming. Like, we're gonna be talking about Olympia for months. We're gonna talk about Olympia till the new year, folks, because there's so much to go over, so much to learn, so much stuff that's gonna make you a better competitor. So if you're not subscribed, hit the subscriber button. Okay, no more playing around. Last athlete we want to look at today, Elisa Romero. Okay, so Elisa Romero, definitely, out of the group, probably the biggest, probably the leanest. And there's competitors that go beyond this that would be bigger and leaner. But for the sake of this video, we're doing top 16, those first 16 athletes, in other words. And, she, out of this group, has the most muscle in the upper body, most muscle in the bicep, tricep, most, dense muscle midsection. We see a lot of muscle in the lower body too. So pretty interesting to note that the biggest athlete that we've looked at today, and we'll look at today, because I'm not going into deeper callouts unless you call for it, is, the bigger athlete. That's the thing. She's more muscled. And, when we get to the back, it's where you see some complexity here with that, because we do see the shoulders. That's good. We do see the taper in. Overall, though, very symmetrical because the lower body is lacking that muscle density. We're not getting as much from that upper glute. We're not getting a lot of that tie-in coming through. Not as much muscle density in the quads or the hamstrings, right? And this is basically how it will go moving into the later callouts, athletes that need more development or had way too much. That's really where it goes from here. I know there was a lot of mass monsters. I saw you all commenting in the comments, this person's going to win. Well, they're probably not even in my video because they were not even in the top 16. So very interesting. Let's look one more time at, our top three. This is your wellness criteria. Eduarda, it seems light years ahead right now, honestly, of everybody else. Will Elisa be able to pull it together and come back and take that title? Will Fran return to stage and, come sweep everybody out? I'm not sure what happens next, but from what I've seen from Eduarda in the time that she's come up and, with where she's at this Olympia compared, I think she could really hold this title for a while if she wants to, because I would expect to see her coming back better. Some of the other competitors, it's hard to say, like, how much better does Elisa get from here? We've seen Elisa go a lot. We've seen her physique kind of go up and down. Does she keep getting better from here? Does Fran? Is Fran even coming back? All these questions are unknown right now, but I want to know what you think. Drop them in the comments, let me know what you think. And thank you for watching one of my very long videos, but I hope you enjoyed it. Coach Ry is out.